Welcome back to the Third Gen Workshop, everyone. If you like our videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. In today's video, in the 1982 to 1992 Chevy Camaro series, we are upgrading the upper and lower track bars, or Panhard bars. The Panhard bar on the Chevy Camaro runs parallel with the rear axle and is designed to prevent lateral movement or minimize lateral movement on the car while driving, especially while cornering. Replacing the factory stamped steel track bars with tubular rigid steel provides more downforce and prevents that lateral movement, like keeping the rear axle centered on your car as you're driving. We are going to install a kit today from Founders Performance. The kit we're installing includes a relocation kit, which means the upper Panhard bar is actually going to come down on the passenger side from where it normally mounts to where the lower track bar typically mounts. And there'll be a spacer sleeve that we put in as well. In addition to relocating the upper bar, the lower bar is relocated with a set of brackets, bringing it further down on the car and provides more rigidity in the rear axle as you're driving. Now, for those of you that are wondering, do I need an adjustable lower track bar or a non-adjustable? The answer really comes down to really two questions. One, are you lowering the ride of your car? If the answer is yes, by putting in lowering springs or weights on your existing coilovers, your existing coil springs, if the answer is yes, you're going to lower the car, then you'll want an adjustable rear lower track bar. Because as the ride lowers, all of the suspension on your car changes the weight points on your ride. That means your rear axle might slide to the left or to the right a little bit depending on your car. And having an adjustable lower Panhard bar will allow you to realign your rear axle and recenter on the car. Now, we're not going over the alignment piece today because we are going to put in lowering springs later, and we'll cover that in another video. The other thing by replacing the upper track bar is it will allow you to run a true 3-inch exhaust over it and then out the back. Or if you're running a dual exhaust, you can run true 2 inches or 2.5 inches and have plenty of room to get over the track bar. So that's the reason why you'd replace the upper. Most people don't unless they're going to either lower the car or they need the extra space for exhaust. The other thing is if you're going to be running a newer motor, an LS or an LT swap motor with fairly extreme horsepower and torque, instead of doing this upgrade, you should consider installing a Watts link instead. It provides a lot more stability for those higher horsepower motors. We'll be doing a Watts link on a different car later in the next couple months for my LS Swap 92, but on this 86 IROC Z, we're just doing the factory stamped steel replacement with the tubular Founders kit from Founders Performance. So with that, let's get started.
In today's video, we're going to be installing a new adjustable Panhard bar and a new Panhard bar relocation bar with brackets. This changes where the upper bar mounts on the rear of the vehicle. Now, even though this is an adjustable Panhard bar, we're going to set this to the factory specs because we are running a factory 10-bolt differential. We don't have any other, reason today to adjust these to a non-factory spec. So when we get the old Panhard bar off, we'll take a measurement, we'll measure these out and make sure that they are the same. The kit for the Panhard bar relocation comes with a spacer, 2 brackets, and a new set of bolts. Those relocation brackets, one will go on the inside with the new Panhard upper Panhard bar, which will move it from this bolt to this bolt, and then this bolt will actually come down here, lowering where the Panhard bar sits. So we need to take these 2 bolts out on this side, and then on this side we need to take this bolt out, which will remove the rest of the Panhard bar, and then these 3 bolts up top to remove the upper bracket. On the passenger side, the bolt here and the nut is 18 millimeter and the bolt head is 21. In order to access this easily, we have to remove the coil spring. In order to do that, we have to remove the shock mounts from the lower part of the differential. What I have done is I've got a jack stand here, because when you remove these shocks, this differential will lower. We don't want to lower it too much because we don't want to strain the brake lines, especially up here on the top. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the lower mounts, bolts for the shocks. We'll remove those. Then we will use this stand and we will gently lower the differential, which will allow us to remove the coil springs. Once the nuts are released on the shocks, just give it a gentle tap to loosen them up and push them off. As you saw, as I removed the left side here, the differential lowered just a little bit. Now we're going to use our stand here. We're going to let the differential lower just a little bit, watching your brake line, because you don't want this brake line here to get too tight, but you want to let the differential come down just enough to be able to get these coil springs out. Just like that. Now with the coil springs out of the way, we can get to the nuts and bolts on our Panhard bars. We're not going to reuse either of these bolts, so that's why I wasn't so worried about stripping it. The one on the other side though, the bolts on the driver's side, we are reusing. We're going to finish removing the lower Panhard bar. Oh yeah, forgot the heat shields. Got one bolt, 2 bolts on it that we'll have to remove. So what's happening is this bolt and the rubber grommet inside the upper Panhard bar is seized. There's a couple ways that we can fix this. We can heat this up. We run a little bit of a risk of that rubber catching on fire, but if we can get it soft, this will pop through. We could cut this bolt off on the nut side, you know, here and here, and just drop it down. Or we can cut it off with the Sawzall in here. The important thing is not to damage this bracket, whatever you do. So we're going to try a little bit of heat first, see if we can't break that free. There we go. Heat it up really well. Whew. There we go. We are out. These parts are very hot, so don't set them on anything that will melt or burn. We're going to spray some water on this and cool it down. As I mentioned at the start of the video, we're going to use the stock length for the Panhard bar. So we'll get our initial measurement center to center, which is 43 inches. And we will adjust out the Panhard bar to match. One side is 1.1/16 nut, and the other side is 1 1/8. Not quite there yet. So 43 inches center, just like when we did our lower control arm video, we put the bolts through the Panhard bar so we can make sure that we're lined up appropriately here. And what we'll do is we will back this off until we are lined up spot on. Just like that. Now we are going to lock these down, finger tight. If we need to make any last minute adjustments on the car, we will. Remember, you have to reuse the one side, the one bolt. We'll clean it up. So the bolts that we're going to reuse on the upper Panhard bar and on the passenger side, I recommend you take a wire brush. If you have a machine, great. If not, a drill and a wire brush will do fine. And just knock all the rust off. Sorry, my battery died on me, and I didn't realize it. the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the upper panhard bar or upper track bar in place. We're going to just loosely put it in with the original 3 bolts that we've cleaned up. The next thing is putting the brackets in. So one bracket goes on the outside facing the front of the car. The other bracket goes on the inside facing the rear of the car. The spacer goes at the top, and you will run the bolt to the top bracket, through the brace on the body, through the nut, through the other bracket, and then out the back. And then you will take the upper track bar and then again run the bolt through the bracket, through the track bar, through the bracket, through the body, and secure it. Don't tighten anything down yet because we still got to put the lower track bar on. This can be a real pain to get into place. What I did is I used a screwdriver to help get the holes lined up and then just worked it in a little bit at a time. Do that and it'll go in pretty well. I also use a rubber mallet to help guide these things in place because it's very tight between this insert and the bracket. So once you get the bolt started, something to secure and hold that spacer in place, you can use the Panhard bar bracket with a mallet and just kind of tap it as you need to. It also makes sense to put the bolt in down here, so you have 4 points, one getting that upper bracket. This is not in, you do the upper bracket first, and by having these 2 locked in place, these brackets move together, makes it easier to go in. I'm not going to disassemble it to show you because it's such a pain, but trust me, put the bolt in here without the Panhard bar and the bolt in here, so this moves as a unit. Start with the top bolt into the spacer, use a rubber mallet to guide this into place. Once you get it all the way through, put it in, take this bolt out, put the track bar up, run the bolt through, and then you're ready for the lower Panhard bar to come in. Now on the Panhard bar from Founders, these ends come with a large side and a small side. The large, since you're reusing the bolts on the lower control arms, the bolt is thicker at the top where it's 21 millimeter and then smaller at the bottom. So the bigger side gets the head end and the smaller side gets the nut end. So when we put this up here, just like that. Now on the passenger side, all the nuts face the rear. On the driver's side, the nut faces the front. So as a result, we have the larger of the 2 grommets on the rear. And because we measured this and verified it against the old Panhard bar, track bar, everything lined up fine. Every now and then you might have to move this a little bit and there is some flex, so get it in place before you tighten anything down. So now we have the track bar installed, the uppers and the lowers. We're going to finger tighten this down and then we'll come in and we'll tighten up the rest of the way. First thing we're going to tighten up now that everything's lined up are these. The manual says these 15 millimeter nuts and bolts are at 58 foot-pounds of torque. So we're going to start by getting them tight, and then we will use the torque wrench, get them all at 58 foot-pounds. So, torque wrench is set for 58 foot-pounds.
the new upper bolts. The nut is 19 and the head is 18. These bolts are all 58 foot-pounds according to the manual. Okay, according to the manual, the track bar bolt that goes to the axle housing is 100 foot-pounds. Now we can lock down the nuts on the track bar. First things first, take your boot, make sure you have it clocked appropriately, and then we're going to slide this thing up and in place. Just like that, and then when we lift this back up, we'll guide it into place. Shocks are back on. The lowering springs are in place. We can drop that off the differential. When you change the ride height of your car, I already have a video posted on this. You will have to change the torque arm to an adjustable torque arm, because when you change the ride height of your car, it changes your differential and your drive shaft alignment with the transmission. When you do that, you have to adjust the pinion angle, which changes the torque arm in relationship to the drive shaft, in relationship to the engine and transmission, in relationship to your rear suspension. The pinion angle should be within -2 of the front, off the front pulley to the back of the torque arm. You can see my other video on how to do this. So because we're putting lowering springs in, and because we have aftermarket hardware in our suspension and new shocks, we're going to have to change out the torque arm and the transmission cross mount in order to accommodate the new ride height of this car and to make sure there's no vibration when you're driving. Thanks for joining us on the Third Gen Workshop. If you like these videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for future upgrades on our Chevy Camaros. So we are working on a 1986 IROC Z, a 91 Z28, and a 92 Z28. We're doing everything from LS swaps to brakes to suspension and rebuilds of motors. Stay tuned for future videos. Thanks again.